newspapers and in many types of media. A Japanese manga dubbed in Hindi on Doordarshan defined the Jungle Books for many of our Indian aunties and uncles in the 80s. The same year Walt Disney's tale came out, in 1967, the Soviets launched their own collectivist take. Later, a French graphic novel spun the horrors at the end of Mowgli's days in a dead jungle ravaged by colonial predation. Or whatever that is, from 2012, which at least imagines that Mowgli might finally tire after a century of stereotypically boisterous, mischievous boys and finally be portrayed as a boisterous, mischievous girl.
Woo!
Yet until EnActe Arts convened a writer's workshop that brought Rudyard Kipling back to life to answer for so many problematic choices, until EnActe's commitment to its mission of reimagining the canon of South Asian stories in a universal context, until EnActe revisited the Jungle Book at a time when America has more tigers in captivity than India has in the wild, well then, only Vinita Balani's writer's room shatters stereotypes to tell the first ever tale of heroic Mowgli, who helps forge a lasting peace between the men of the village and the animals of the jungle, and understand the story of the pained, lonely tiger Sherbag. In EnActe's version of the Jungle Book, Sherbag's father had tried to negotiate a peace with the village, and the men walked all over him, literally as a rug. Although not everything changes. Don't ask about the chittering you hear in the trees above. The Bundalow remained an outcast of naughty monkeys. The main character is still called Mowgli, even though Rudyard finally admits on stage that it doesn't mean frog in any Indian language. So another quote from the ending of the play is, "I will be the bridge between the jungle and the village. I can speak to the jungle for the village, and to the village for the jungle. You see, I belong in two homes. I am two Mowglis." Mowgli is a character who gets his strength from defying stereotypes about both aspects of himself. He reconciles his inner turmoil and the pain it has caused him until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. I also want to break stereotypes and learn what I can from the worlds I belong to. As an Indian American, as an immigrant between generations, as a student and a teacher, as a reader and a writer, as a star on a team of stars, as an entrepreneur and an activist. I'm sure that many of you in the audience have experienced some of the widespread Indian stereotypes. You might think I'm good at STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And not to brag, I am. I can't apologize for being awesome. But beyond these school subjects, I like art. Drawing, painting, making new worlds, and creating and writing stories that need to be told. I added art to STEM at the nerdiest place you can imagine, KLS, which stands for Khan Lab School, which you may not have heard of. But you've probably heard of Salman Khan and his YouTube Khan Academy, which inspired him to found an experimental, in-person kindergarten to 12th grade school a few years ago. And that's where I first got involved with EnActe, an after-school class where I was the lead role of Aisha in the case of a vanishing firefish, an original adaptation of a new novel about climate crisis, bioluminescence, and a little time-traveling party with Stephen Hawking and surfing with Albert Einstein. Later, I got a small part in Oasis, a short film about a very big topic, video blogging a child's perspective of domestic violence and abuse. In theater, I've applied the same stereotype-breaking insights that power KLS. Every teacher is a student, and every student is a teacher. Although unfortunately, none of the students are classified as staff, so the staff lounge shall forever remain a mystery. KLS itself breaks some stereotypes you'd expect from a school with spelling bee stars and champion robotics and Rubik's Cube competitions. There's no homework, and clubs that are led by students, and a lot of free time to grow at your own pace. Students even present their own portfolios at student-led conferences. Like test-centered schools in India and California, KLS tests you, helps you learn what you didn't know, then tests again, but only to free students for self-paced learning, whether that means racing ahead in some areas or balancing enough student subjects to skip a grade, like I did, or getting double promoted, as some of you might recognize. Working through grades and lockstep classrooms left time to start my own theater club, although the title is all I'm going to share out of respect for democracy. a play about dogs in space named after Revolutionary War characters. It's a very good thing you can delete emails. Although I'm glad I won't eat the email from the judges, because me and my peers wrote a script called When the Invaders Came and submitted it for a South Asian playwriting contest about the time Queen Victoria was defeated by throwing colors at Holi. Bet you didn't learn that in your stereotypical textbooks. I like to write, though generally fiction. When I was younger, I got dragged on train rides by my old-fashioned father to San Francisco for the March on Justice on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. He's proud of the photo with the train, but I'm honestly prouder of what it caused. That many march inspired me to ask why there wasn't an entry in the long-running Magic Treehouse series on civil rights. So like stereotypical Desi parents, my parents said, if I couldn't find a book to read, I ought to write it. So I did. That's where I learned about Gandhi's influence on King and the behind-the-scenes heroes of the woman who made the march safe and large in scale. And Bayard Rustin, whom I learned about more just yesterday here, from the producer of a documentary about his role at the march. Thanks, man.